I do need that done, but it is a thing in your field. Okay, back to connective tissue traits here, okay? So, most of them are very well vascularized, meaning that they have blood supply. There are a few that's not, and that exception is going to be tendons and ligaments, okay? Tendons and ligaments, they have a poor blood supply, and cartilage has no blood supply at all. Otherwise, all other connective tissues are going to be vascularized. So, kind of remembering that. Going back to the intracellular matrix here, it kind of creates this rubbery part in cartilage, the heart and the bone, and the gel-like and fat tissues. Okay. Presence and amount of protein fibers vary. These fibers are secreted from fibroblasts and include collagen, elastin, and reticular fibers. Okay. Collagen is strong and flexible, but not easily stretched, where elastin is very strong, but is very stretchy like a rubber band. Types of connective tissue. So I've described what connective tissue is like, but next up I'm going to talk to you about the different types of connective tissue. So there are loose connective tissue and dense fibrous connective tissue. Then there's cartilage, bone, and a liquid. So what does dense mean to you guys? Before we get started on loose here first, what is dense? The word dense, just in general. Okay, compacted, I like that. Compacted, so then sometimes dense can mean heavy to some people, but it's mainly because it may not even be heavy, but it's because it's what Colton said here, compacted together, okay? Squeezed together, compacted together. All right, so we'll get there in just a minute with dense fibrous connective tissue. Starting off the top here is going to be loose connective tissue. Examples of that are going to be areolar tissue, which act as glue. They cushion, protect many different organs, okay? Next up is adipose tissue. I believe most of you probably know what that is when I say adipose, but that's going to be the fat tissue. It stores fat, serves as a protective layer, regulates body temperature. It's also deposited around certain organs. I'm going to show you on the anatomy table how much fat, just naturally, even in a healthy person, how much fat is surrounded around the heart or adipose tissue. Also, there is reticular connective tissue, and when you hear the reticular at this point, it's not necessarily to do with the eye, but more to do with the lymphatic system, so the spleen, the lymph nodes, and the bone marrow as well. Moving on here to the dense or the fibrous connective tissue, or the compacted tissue. This is where it's, like the tendons, the ligaments, so it's compacted together, very strong, okay? It works together, elastic fibers, to be strong supporting structures. So the tendons, ligaments, capsules, fascia, which is a protective layer, and then the dermal layer, which is the second layer of skin. So strong, strong, strong. Tendons attach muscles to bones. Tendons attach muscles to bones. Ligaments attach bones to one another, so bone to bone. Okay? Ligaments attach bone to bone. Tendons attach muscle to bone. Capsules, there's a capsule around the kidneys, there's a capsule around the liver, and so those are going to enclose those organs and be the protective layer. Fascia, when you think about fascia, you should think about sheets that cover muscles. You're going to see a great layer of fascia on the abdominal cavity. It's going to look like this white sheet over top, okay? And that's just this connective tissue. It's not a fatty layer. Okay, it's this connective tissue. It also is blood vessels and nerves and supports and anchors organs together. The third type of connective tissue is cartilage itself. Cartilage is also called condor or chondro, okay, is the medical term for it. So the chondrocytes are cartilage cells. Most cartilage itself is going to be covered by a perichondrium. So that's a layer about or around, or a layer surrounding the cartilage that because cartilage doesn't have blood vessels, but that perichondro has the blood vessels in it to feed that cartilage. There are different types of cartilage. One example here is going to be hyaline. That's found in your voice box, at the ends of long bones and joints, the nose. There's also an area between the breastbone and the ribs that gets injured a lot. Costochondritis, pleurisy is also kind of in the same category, and so forth. So also in the fetus, in the newborn fetus or the unborn fetus, which I can also show you on the anatomy table, there is a lot more cartilage than there is bone. Okay, so infants, newborns are born with a lot more cartilage than bone. So the cartilage is then later converted to bone. So everyone's like, oh, gentle, gentle, it's a baby. I'm so scared to do this to it, scared. But actually, they're more like pliable. They're less hard to hurt than us, okay? We break easier, is what I'm saying. We break easier. So it's really, really scary to me when a child comes in with shaken baby syndrome or an injury that is not matching up and it's a broken bone or something else, because listen, a lot of it, especially a newborn baby, they had to use major, major force, not just an accident, okay? Accidents do happen. They can happen for sure, but the majority of the cases do not match up, and they have used unseen amounts of force to create that trauma or that abuse to the very new baby, okay? Because they're mainly made of cartilage. They don't break easily. Bone is going to be the fourth different type of connective tissue within this category. It is also known as osseous tissue, okay? Immature bone cells are also called osteoblasts, and then osteoblasts secrete that intercellular matrix into collagen, calcium salts, and other minerals. Collagen is used for flexibility and strength, and then osteoblasts that mature, so osteoblasts are immature bone cells, but once they mature, they become osteocytes or bone cells. When there is mineralization of a bone tissue, or when it diminishes, it goes less, as an osteoporosis, the bone then weakens and can be broken very easily as we get older. Bone tissue is there to protect organs. It is there to support weight and to store minerals such as calcium as well. One of the last two categories, or the last two categories of connective tissue, is going to be blood and then lymph. So lymph is going to be that watery-like substance. It's fluid found in the lymphatic vessels, but it follows underneath the connective tissue category. The last one there is going to be blood. It is surrounded by plasma, and that is included in connective tissue. So this is going to be a picture here showing you all the places connective tissue is located. There's a lot here. The muscles, the bones, not the muscles, I said that wrong. The bones, the ligaments, the tendons, the blood, and so forth. Next up is nervous tissue. This is the third type of tissue that we're going to talk about within this chapter, and it is a short one. It's because nervous tissue is seriously just makes up the brain, the spinal cord, and then the nerves. That's it, okay? So the picture here, picture A, is going to be a picture of a neuron, okay, because there's two different types of cells, and a neuron is one. And the second type of cell is going to be the neuroglia, okay, or the glia cell. So the neuron there, it is made up of those dendrites, which look like the tree branches coming off of the top there. Then the cell body, which includes that nucleus there in purple. And then the axon. Those are the only parts to a neuron. 3 parts to a neuron, okay? And then back there, down at the bottom again, is dendrites, just connecting so all this electricity can move throughout them. The axon hooks onto the next dendrites and so forth. And so it's this neuron activity can transmit signals from the brain to the rest of the body. The neuroglia, those are going to be the bluish-green-like areas here around the neurons, and they are going to be like glue-like structures to keep the neurons kind of happy and in certain areas, okay? So they're the glue-like structures that keep the neurons happy in there. The last tissue group of this lecture is muscle tissue, okay? Within muscle tissue, there's skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscle. Muscle tissue, what it's really doing, is composed of that group of cells that are similar in structure and function, and these really should shorten and contract to cause movement of a body part. Me moving my eyes right now is using that contracting and shortening method. Me using my hands, me moving my foot, whatever it is, that is the muscle tissues working, okay? Skeletal muscle, pretty self-explanatory here. It is generally attached to the bone, okay? Its appearance is under the microscope is in striations or stripes, and it is called striated muscle as well. Smooth muscle, this is visceral muscle. Visceral means organs, okay? So smooth muscle, think about the lining of organs and such. It's found in tubes, and bronchioles, and blood vessels, in the bladder, and the intestines, and the stomach, and so forth. Smooth muscle is usually, the function is related to the organ in which it is found. Next up is cardiac muscle. I think most of you guys probably know where this muscle only is located, is within the heart. It is again striated a little bit, but looks much different. It's bigger in diameter in the microscope, and I'm going to show you the picture next, okay? This is found only in the heart, and its function is to pump the blood and the blood vessels. So this is the picture here of the locations of the 3 different muscle tissues. Skeletal, look at that striation on there. Cardiac up top there, and then smooth down below. Alright, so we talked about the 4 different types of tissues, and I just have a few slides real quick to talk about what we do if something goes wrong, okay? What do we do if we have a muscle tear? Okay, it's tissue. What do we do? What happens to our skin if we get a pretty good cut? What happens to our skin if we get a pretty good cut? It forms a scar, okay? What's probably underneath the scar? What if it's elevated, like this keloid right here? Oh, maybe you guys can't see it, maybe you can. Oh, it's right here. Okay, if you can't see it, it looks like a mosquito bite, but it's there all the time. It's not a mosquito bite. It feels hard. What's under there? What do you guys think that is? It's a keloid. It's scar tissue, okay? So in tissue repair, there's going to be the regeneration or the fibrosis. Fibrosis is going to be the scar tissue. The fibers are built up instead of the tissue actually rebuilding, okay, or regenerating. So regeneration is replacement of tissues via mitosis, that dividing, okay, keep on dividing. So regeneration really happens with that epithelial tissue, which is our skin. It's constantly sloughing off and redividing, and making new. The fibrosis, think about scar tissue, okay? The damaged skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and nervous tissue, they don't really undergo mitosis, and so they have to be replaced with scar tissue. If you've had any major surgeries, there's a good chance at maybe the scalpel site or even on the surface of the area that is also built up scar tissue there, okay? What keloid scarring is, it's excessive fibrosis. It often appears in the upper trunk and the earlobes, and it is also more prominent, no idea why, maybe the pigment of African American individuals, okay, or darker skin. I've had this keloid here since 2007. I got a cyst cut out that was deep within my skin, and I have one on my back too right here. So I have like a Native American background, and so the doctor's like, I guess that's maybe why you are you're scarring so bad, or that you're having this keloid formation. But anybody can get them. It's just kind of whether or not they come to the surface or not. So this is showing you a picture of steps in tissue repair here. So in A there, you have the wound that happens, the cut there, okay? B, it's clotting and scabbing over, exactly what it should do, okay? Then C, it's starting the tissue repair begins. The scab is still there, but from the underneath surface, the tissue repair is beginning. In D down here, it's starting to form that scar tissue underneath, okay? In E, it's forming the epithelial cells are multiplying, and it fills the area between the scar tissue and the scab, and it's getting less and less, where F, the scab detaches, and the regenerated layer is over top of the scar tissue. So sometimes you might not know that scar tissue is there. It's underneath the surface most of the time, okay? With tissues in this chapter, tissues, it also includes membranes in our body, and we talk about mucous membranes, or these membranes around our body that act as tissue or protective layers. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit. In your book, it says, I want you to use colored pencils or markers. That they're in the back of my cabinets. It says to draw this on this person. Draw this. It says draw the diaphragm at the end. Not diagram, but diaphragm. Okay? The diaphragm is not on this picture, but the diaphragm would be located as a line across, basically right underneath those lungs. Okay? More what this is going to be talking about here is talking about the different tissues or membranes here. There's 2 membranes around all organs here. So what it's talking about is there's a membrane right next to the organ, so the first membrane, and that's going to be called the visceral, because visceral means organ. Okay? So there's a visceral pericardium and a parietal pericardium. The parietal is outside of the visceral one. Okay, so there's 2 layers there. As well as around our lungs, right, or the pleural space, is that they're called. So right next to the lungs is the visceral pleura, And then the next layer is going to be the parietal pleura. The same as the abdominal cavity here, the peritoneal cavity here down at the bottom. The one closer to the organs is called visceral, deeper within. The next one on the outside is going to be the parietal, each the same. All right, these mucous membranes I talked about earlier, I kind of told you that they line all body cavities that open to the exterior of the body, including the digestive tract, that would be your mouth and anus, urinary, reproductive, and respiratory tract. The digestive tract opens to the exterior of the body at the mouth and the anus, and then also the respiratory tract opens at the nose and the mouth. Okay? Mucus is secreted to lubricate and to moisturize. If we're not seeing a wet or moisturized mucous membranes when we're doing an exam on a human or an animal, we know what is going on if it doesn't look lubricated or wet even. What's going on? Just an overall general thing. If mucous membranes are not pink and moist, that probably means first step is going to be dehydration. Okay? Dehydration. Alright, also within these membranes is a serous membrane. What it is, serous, not serious. Serous membrane, and that secretes a thin, watery, serous fluid. It allows these membranes and organs to slide against each other within the different cavities. Okay? Alright, again, here's breaking down the pleural, the pericardium and the peritoneum. And a bigger picture for you guys. You guys should have these in different colors in your workbook, meaning that you need to do that, okay? I don't care what colors you pick, it does not have to be the same ones that's up on this picture. I think this is the last slide, and I will leave it up to be helpful for you guys. The next thing we're going to do is go look at the Anna-March table for the end of this